I wasn't always like this. My name's James, and to tell you the truth, I've never been one of those guys who lights up a room or draws people in. I've always kept to myself, not exactly a social butterfly, and relationships. Let's just say they've never been my thing. I've been single for as long as I can remember. But even so, I'd say I was pretty normal. Quiet, sure, but normal enough. I had a steady job, kept my head down, and mostly stayed in my lane. The folks at work probably thought I was a bit odd, maybe even avoided me, but that was fine. I liked my solitude. I didn't need anyone. Or at least, that's what I used to believe. Lately, though, something's shifted. Something I can't quite wrap my head around. And I've started wondering if maybe being alone all the time, cooped up in this tiny apartment with nobody to talk to, has done something to me, messed with me in ways I didn't see coming. No one's dropped by in months. My phone doesn't ring, doesn't buzz. It's like people have just stopped reaching out. I used to tell myself I preferred the quiet, that the silence was comforting. But now, I'm not so sure. Maybe it's the isolation. Or maybe it's something else entirely. It began with an itch, just a little tickle at the back of my neck. Annoying, sure, but not a big deal. I chalked it up to stress or maybe some kind of allergic reaction. You hear about those things happening, right? But then, the itching morphed into something I couldn't ignore. Something off. That's when I realized this wasn't normal. I can't pinpoint exactly when the change started. Maybe it snuck up on me, creeping in little by little, or maybe it hit me all at once like flipping a switch. All I know is, one day I noticed this strange sensation beneath my skin. At first, I tried to convince myself I was imagining it. But the more I felt it, the more I scratched, the clearer it became. There was something there. Something alive. Something moving. I know how it sounds, but I swear I'm not crazy. At least, I don't think I am. It's tough to put into words, what it's like to feel your own body betraying you, turning into something alien. To feel something squirming under your skin. Some days, I manage to convince myself it's all in my head, but other days, it feels so real I can't ignore it. Not that anyone else would believe me. Heck, half the time, I don't even believe myself. I went online, desperate for answers. I dug through forums and blogs, trying to figure out if this was some kind of illness or infection. That's when I stumbled across these communities, groups of people claiming to feel the same thing. They called them parasites, talked about bugs crawling just beneath the skin, burrowing deeper and deeper. At first, I thought it was nonsense. Just a bunch of weirdos trying to scare each other. But then it happened to me. It started with these tiny lumps on my neck. At first, they were so small I barely noticed them. But they didn't go away. In fact, they seemed to shift, like something was wriggling around under the surface. When I pressed on them, I could feel them move. The itching became unbearable, like thousands of ants crawling just beneath my skin. Scratching didn't help, no matter how hard I clawed or how deep I dug, the feeling never stopped. And then came the blisters. Little raised bumps that oozed this disgusting yellow gunk whenever I touched them. I tried to ignore it, tried to tell myself it was just a rash or something harmless. But soon, more bumps started popping up, spreading like wildfire across my neck and down my arms. Then came the holes. Tiny pinprick-sized craters that itched worse than anything I've ever felt. They leaked, they bled, and no matter what I did, they kept spreading. That's when the noise started. It was a faint hum at first, like a machine running far away. But over time, it grew louder. It became this endless, maddening buzzing, like cicadas trapped inside my skull, their wings brushing against my brain. It's all I can hear now, this relentless whir that drowns out everything else. I thought it might be tinnitus, but this isn't just some ordinary ringing. It feels alive, like something's moving inside me. And then the hives came. Clusters of tiny holes, dotting my skin like the surface of a honeycomb, oozing the same thick, yellow fluid. I'd press on them, trying to force whatever was inside out, but all I got was more blood and more pain. Sometimes, when I looked closely, I swear I could see movement, little black specks writhing deep inside. I tried cutting into the skin, hoping to dig whatever it was out, but it always slipped away, burrowing deeper where I couldn't reach it. I know how insane this all sounds. Trust me, I get it. But I'm not imagining this. It's real. I can feel it. I see it. Still, on nights when the buzzing gets so loud I can't even think, when I'm lying there staring at the ceiling, I can't help but wonder, what if I am losing my mind? What if it's all in my head, just some twisted result of being alone for too long, of living in silence with no one to talk to? But then I feel it again. Those legs, crawling through my veins, digging into my muscles. And I know it's not just in my head. It can't be. How could it be? I see the holes. I feel them. I tried to burn them out. I know how insane that sounds, but in my desperation, it felt like the only option left. I thought maybe the heat would drive them out, force whatever was inside me to surface. So I grabbed a lighter, held the flame to my arm, and let it sear my skin. The fire bit deep, the flesh bubbling and peeling under the heat. The pain was unbearable, like my nerves were screaming, but for the briefest moment, the buzzing, it quieted. Just for a second. But when the burns healed, the holes came back. They always come back. Now I can't sleep. I can't eat. Every inch of my body feels like it's been invaded, like I'm decomposing from the inside out. The smell of it is impossible to ignore, a sickly, sweet stench of decay wafting off my skin, making me gag every time I catch a whiff. The buzzing is louder than ever now, a relentless cacophony that drowns out every other sound. Cicadas, screaming in my ears, making it impossible to think. And when I close my eyes, I can see them. Those tiny, black shapes writhing just beneath the surface of my flesh, burrowing deeper into me, spreading their rot. I thought about going to a doctor. I even made an appointment, spent hours rehearsing what I'd say in the mirror. But when the day came, I couldn't do it. What could I tell them? Something's growing inside me. They'd think I'd lost my mind. Lock me up in some padded room, drug me senseless, and tell me it was all in my head. And maybe they'd be right. But what if they're not? I don't know anymore. Whether it's real or some sick figment of my imagination, it's tearing me apart from the inside. I thought I could cut it out. I grabbed a paring knife from the kitchen. It wasn't sharp, but it would do. My hands were shaking as I pressed the blade against one of the clusters of holes on my arm. The skin there was swollen and raw, oozing with that disgusting yellow pus. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, and pushed the knife in, just a little, just enough to pierce the surface. That's when the buzzing changed. It grew louder, more frantic, almost like the cicadas were cheering me on, daring me to go deeper. I pressed harder, the blade slicing into my arm with a wet, sickening sound. The skin split apart under the pressure, jagged and uneven, and blood welled up, thick and dark, spilling over the knife. That's when I saw it, movement. Just below the surface, something black and wriggling, something alive. My breath caught in my throat as I dug the knife deeper, desperate to get to it. The pain was excruciating, a fiery blaze radiating through my arm, but I didn't care. I had to get it out. I had to stop whatever was inside me from spreading. I dragged the blade through the flesh, carving into myself with reckless abandon. The wound gaped open, blood and pus pouring out in sticky streams, pooling on the floor. I clawed at the torn skin with my fingers, ripping it away in messy strips, exposing the raw, bloody tissue beneath. My nails sank into the wound, tearing at the muscle, but no matter how deep I went, I couldn't reach it. The thing inside me kept moving, slipping further into the meat of my arm, evading me at every turn. It felt like it was mocking me, laughing as it burrowed deeper, staying just out of reach. I lost control. I stabbed again and again, each thrust of the knife more frantic, more desperate. Blood sprayed across the room, staining my clothes and the floor. The pain was numbing now, a dull, rhythmic throb that pulsed with every beat of my heart. I screamed, my throat raw and hoarse, but the buzzing only grew louder, drowning out my cries. I shoved my fingers into the open wound, trying to grab hold of the squirming thing. My hands were slick with blood, making it impossible to grip. It was there, I could feel it, slippery and oily, sliding between my fingers every time I thought I had it. I tore at my arm, pulling at the flesh, ripping it away in long, ragged strips until I could see the bone beneath. The cicadas screamed louder, their maddening chorus filling my head, drowning me in their relentless song. But no matter how much I cut, no matter how deep I dug, I couldn't find it. It's still in there. Still inside me.